What if I told you that 47 people have already purchased immortality? Not metaphorical immortality, not legacy or fame, actual, literal, digital immortality where death becomes optional. And what if I told you that not a single one of them earned less than $10 billion? While your grandmother dies of Alzheimer's, while your friend battles cancer, while you watch everyone you love age and fade away, there are people right now, in secret facilities, preparing to upload their consciousness into machines where they'll live forever, controlling governments, controlling economies, controlling you for centuries. This isn't science fiction. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is the story of Dr. Maya Chen, the neuroscientist who discovered the plan, who stole the evidence, and who had to choose between becoming immortal herself or saving humanity from the most dangerous invention ever created. What she found in that server room at 2 a.m. didn't just change her life. It changed the future of every single person on Earth. And it all started with a job offer she should have never accepted. The elevator doors slid open with a quiet hiss, and Dr. Maya Chen stepped into the darkness of the restricted server room, her heart hammering against her ribs like a prisoner, desperate for escape. She shouldn't be here. Not at 2 a.m, not without proper clearance, and definitely not with a flash drive burning like a guilty secret in her pocket. But 3 months of working at Titan Industries had taught her one undeniable truth. Something was terribly, terribly wrong with Project Elysium. And tonight, she was going to find out exactly what Marcus Vance was hiding. The blue glow of server racks stretched before her like an endless corridor of secrets, humming with the processing power of 1,000 supercomputers. Maya's hands trembled as she approached the main terminal, her reflection ghostly in the darkened screen. Behind her, security, cameras tracked every movement. But she'd learned their rotation patterns, memorized the 60-second blind spots that would either save her career or destroy it completely. She had exactly 4 minutes before the next security sweep. 4 minutes to uncover the truth. 4 minutes to decide if she was brave enough to become a whistleblower or foolish enough to throw away everything she'd worked for. "Come on," she whispered frantically, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she bypassed the first layer of encryption. The system fought back, demanding credentials she'd borrowed from her supervisor's unlocked computer just hours earlier. Her palms were slick with sweat. Every sound made her jump. The distant rumble of the building's ventilation system became footsteps in her paranoid mind, and the red glow of the emergency exit sign felt like an accusation. The screen flickered, and suddenly files began cascading before her eyes. Project Elysium, internal memos, neural mapping protocols. And there, buried in a subfolder marked Phase 3 Implementation, she found it. The client list that would change everything she thought she knew about her research, about her work, about the very purpose of human consciousness itself. 47 names, 47 billionaires who had each paid $500 million for something that shouldn't exist, something that defied every natural law Maya had ever studied. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the documentation, her scientific mind struggling to process the implications, even as her moral compass spun wildly out of control. They weren't developing medical technology to help paralyzed patients walk again. They weren't creating neural interfaces to cure Alzheimer's or restore lost memories. No, Marcus Vance had built something far more ambitious, far more dangerous, and far more ethically devastating. Digital immortality. Consciousness uploading. The complete transfer of a human mind into a computer system where death became obsolete, where aging was a choice, where the wealthy could literally purchase eternal life while the rest of humanity remained trapped in fragile mortal bodies. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she read Vance's own words in a memo dated just 3 weeks earlier. Mortality is humanity's greatest inefficiency. We're not just building a technology, we're building a new species, one that never forgets, never ages, and never, ever surrenders power. Oh my God! The words escaped her lips before she could stop them, echoing in the sterile silence of the server room. Her sister's face flashed through her mind. Sarah, who had died at 23 because they couldn't afford experimental cancer treatment. Sarah, who had begged for just 1 more year, 1 more month, 1 more day. And here was Marcus Vance, casually offering eternity to people who already had everything. The injustice of it burned through Maya's chest like acid. She'd spent 6 years in graduate school, drowning in student loan debt, sacrificing relationships and sleep and sanity to advance neuroscience for the benefit of all humanity. And these billionaires were going to hoard immortality like dragons guarding gold, keeping it locked away from the 7 billion people who would continue to age and suffer and die while they lived forever in their perfect digital paradises. But it was worse than that. So much worse. Maya clicked through to the projection models, and her blood ran cold. Vance wasn't just planning to upload a few wealthy eccentrics. He was building an entire infrastructure, digital governance systems, economic models where uploaded consciousnesses could control their companies indefinitely, political frameworks where billionaires could influence elections across centuries. She found communications with senators, with judges, with media moguls, all carefully preparing the legal and social groundwork for a world where the ultra-rich became literally immortal. The first upload is scheduled for 14 days from now, she read aloud, her voice barely a whisper. Subject Alpha has been prepared. Neural mapping is 99.7% accurate, thanks to Dr. Chen's breakthrough in synaptic pattern recognition. Her own name, her own research. The equations she'd developed to help people with brain injuries were being weaponized to create a permanent ruling class. Maya's hands shook as she inserted the flash drive, watching the progress bar crawl across the screen as gigabytes of incriminating data copied onto the tiny device. 30%, 50%. Every second felt like an hour. Every distant sound became a security guard's footsteps. She'd crossed a line she could never uncross. The non-disclosure agreement she'd signed wasn't just a legal document anymore. It was a countdown to either her salvation or her destruction. 80%. The elevator dinged somewhere in the distance. Maya's heart stopped. Someone was coming. She frantically minimized windows, her fingers clumsy with panic. 95%. Footsteps in the hallway. Getting closer. The door handle began to turn. 100%. Maya yanked the flash drive free, shoved it deep into her pocket, and dove behind a server rack just as light flooded the room. Through the gaps between the machines, she could see a security guard's silhouette, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness like a searchlight hunting for escaped prisoners. Maya pressed herself against the cold metal of the server rack, barely daring to breathe as the security guard's footsteps echoed through the room. The flashlight beam swept past her hiding spot, once, twice, and she could hear him muttering into his radio. "Yeah, I'm in server room 3. Motion sensors triggered, but I don't see anything. Probably just another glitch in the system." Her lungs burned with the effort of staying silent. One cough, one sneeze, one tiny sound, and everything would be over. The flash drive in her pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, like it was radiating guilt that the guard would surely sense. "Copy that. I'll do one more sweep and head back." The guard's voice was casual, bored even, and Maya realized with a surge of desperate hope that he wasn't expecting to find anyone. Why would he? Nobody was crazy enough to break into Marcus Vance's private server room in the middle of the night. Nobody except her. The footsteps moved away, the door clicked shut, and Maya waited in the darkness for another full minute before she dared to move. Her legs were cramping, her whole body trembling with adrenaline, but she'd done it. She had the evidence. She had proof of the most audacious crime against humanity ever conceived. The next morning, Maya sat in her apartment, staring at her laptop screen, the flash drive connected, but unopened, while her coffee grew cold beside her. What was she supposed to do with this information? Who could she trust? If she went to the media, Vance would bury her in lawsuits before the story even aired. If she went to the police, what crime had actually been committed? Pursuing immortality wasn't illegal. Charging people $500 million for it wasn't illegal. Being obscenely wealthy wasn't illegal. But in her bones, in her soul, Maya knew that what Vance was planning would fundamentally break human civilization in ways that no law had ever anticipated. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We know what you found. Check your email. We can protect you." Maya's blood turned to ice. How could anyone possibly know? She'd been so careful. Unless Titan's security systems were more sophisticated than she'd realized. Unless they'd been watching her all along, waiting to see what she would do with the information she'd discovered. With shaking hands, Maya opened her encrypted email account. There, sitting at the top of her inbox, was a message with no subject. Line and an attachment labeled simply, "Read this first." Every instinct screamed at her not to open it. This was how people got hacked, how they got traced, how they got caught. But curiosity and desperation won out, and she clicked. The document that opened was a government dossier. Not some local police report, but a full federal intelligence brief, stamped with classifications Maya had only seen in movies. Project Elysium Threat Assessment, the header read. Prepared by the Joint Task Force on Emerging Technologies. Her eyes flew down the page, absorbing information that made her stolen files look like amateur hour. The government had been investigating Titan Industries for 8 months. They knew about the consciousness uploading. They knew about the client list. They knew about Vance's plans to create what they called a techno-feudal oligarchy that would make democracy obsolete. But they didn't have enough evidence to move. Vance was too careful, too powerful, too connected. Every investigation had hit legal walls built by the best lawyers money could buy. They needed an insider. They needed someone with access to the technical specifications, the client communications, the proof that this wasn't just theoretical research, but an active conspiracy to fundamentally alter the balance of human power forever. They needed her. The email continued with instructions to meet Agent Sarah Kim at a coffee shop across town in exactly 3 hours. "Come alone," it warned. "Tell no one. Your life may depend on it." Maya laughed bitterly at that last part. Of course her life depended on it. The moment she walked into that coffee shop, she would be choosing between 2 futures. One where she kept her head down, accepted whatever fate Titan Industries had planned for her, and lived with the guilt of knowing she could have stopped something terrible. And another where she became a whistleblower, a target, a person whose face would be plastered across every news channel as either a hero or a traitor depending on which billionaire was being interviewed. She thought about her sister again. Sarah, who had died because medical care was too expensive, because pharmaceutical companies priced life-saving drugs beyond the reach of ordinary people, because the system was already rigged in favor of those who could afford to buy extra years. And now Vance wanted to make that inequality permanent, eternal, unbreakable. "No," Maya said aloud to her empty apartment. "No, I won't let that happen. Sarah deserved better. Everyone deserves better." She grabbed her jacket, shoved the flash drive into her bra where it couldn't be easily stolen, and headed for the door. But as her hand touched the doorknob, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Titan Industries, Marcus Vance. Her first instinct was to ignore it, to run, to disappear before Vance could threaten her or worse. But something made her answer. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the scientist in her that needed to understand the mind of a man who thought he could play God. Or maybe it was just raw courage she didn't know she possessed. "Dr. Chen!" Vance's voice was smooth as silk, warm as sunshine, and completely terrifying in its casual friendliness. "I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I was reviewing your recent work, and I'm absolutely blown away by your progress. Your neural mapping algorithms are even more elegant than I'd hoped. In fact, I'd like to invite you to lunch today. My private office. We have so much to discuss about your future with Titan Industries." Maya's mouth went dry. He knew. He had to know. This wasn't a casual invitation. This was a power play, a warning wrapped in corporate politeness. I appreciate that, Mr. Vance, but I actually have plans this afternoon. Oh, I insist." His tone hadn't changed, but something underneath it had hardened like steel. "Cancel them, trust me, Maya. May I call you Maya? What I have to show you will change your entire perspective on our work here. In fact," he paused dramatically, "I'm prepared to offer you something that very few people in human history have ever been offered. A chance at forever." Maya's apartment suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in as Marcus Vance's words echoed in her mind. A chance at forever. He was offering her immortality. He was offering her a place among the chosen few who would escape death itself. And the terrifying part was that some small, selfish corner of her soul actually wanted it. Who wouldn't want to live forever? Who wouldn't want to see the future, to witness humanity spreading to the stars, to never lose another person they loved to the cruel inevitability of time? "I don't understand," Maya said carefully, her voice barely steady. "What exactly are you offering me, Mr. Vance?" His laugh was genuine, delighted even. "Come to lunch and find out. I promise you, Maya, after today, you'll see everything differently. Your concerns, your doubts, even your moral objections. They all come from a limited perspective, from thinking inside the box of mortality. But what if there was no box? What if the only limits were the ones we chose to accept?" He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried an edge of something darker. 12:30, my private dining room. Don't be late. Oh, and Maya, I know you were in the server room last night. Let's talk about that too." The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone in horror. He knew. Of course he knew. Titan Industries probably had security measures she couldn't even imagine. AI monitoring systems, behavioral analysis algorithms, maybe even quantum encryption that tracked every unauthorized access attempt. She'd been so stupid, so recklessly naive to think she could just waltz into a billionaire's private server room and steal his secrets without consequences. But if Vance knew she'd stolen the files, why wasn't she already being arrested? Why the polite lunch invitation instead of lawyers and threats? The answer crystallized in her mind with sickening clarity. He wasn't afraid of her. He thought he could turn her, could seduce her with promises of immortality, could make her complicit in his grand design. And if she refused? Well, that's when the threats would start, That's when she'd discover just how ruthless a man with infinite resources and infinite time could truly be. Maya checked her watch. 2 hours until the government meeting. 3 hours until Vance's lunch. She had to decide right now which future she was choosing. The flash drive pressed against her chest like a second heartbeat, and she made her choice. She ran. The coffee shop was deliberately ordinary, the kind of place where nobody looked twice at strangers meeting over lattes and muffins. Maya spotted Agent Sarah Kim immediately. Mid-40s, sharp eyes that missed nothing, dressed in business casual that could belong to any corporate professional. Kim gestured to the seat across from her, sliding a foam cup toward Maya. "Decaf vanilla latte," Kim said quietly. "You look like you need it. And before you ask, yes, we swept you for tracking devices when you walked in. You're clean." She leaned forward, her expression intense. "So, did you bring it? Do you have evidence we can actually use?" Maya pulled the flash drive from her bra, setting it on the table between them like a tiny bomb. Everything. Client lists, technical specifications, internal memos where Vance explicitly discusses creating a permanent ruling class, projection models showing how uploaded billionaires could control global economics for centuries. And, her voice cracked with emotion, proof that my research, my work on neural mapping, is the final piece that made it all possible. I helped him, Agent Kim. I gave him the tools to break humanity in half. Kim's hand closed over the flash drive, and for a moment, genuine sympathy softened her features. You didn't know, you can't blame yourself for that. But now you do know, and you're here, and that takes real courage. She pocketed the drive. This is exactly what we need to move forward. With your testimony and these files, we can get warrants, freeze his assets, shut down Project Elysium before the first upload happens. It's scheduled for 2 weeks from now, Maya said urgently. Subject Alpha, that's what they call the first volunteer, and Vance just called me. He knows I took the files. He's inviting me to lunch, offering me. She swallowed hard. Offering me a spot in the first 100 uploads. He thinks he can buy my silence with immortality. Kim's eyes narrowed. He's panicking. That's good. That means he knows we're closing in. But Maya, you need to understand what you're getting into here. Marcus Vance has friends in every branch of government. He funds congressional campaigns. He owns media outlets. He has private security forces that operate in legal grey zones. The moment we move on him, he'll come after you. With everything he has. Character assassination, lawsuits, maybe worse. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this? Maya thought about her sister's hospital room, about holding Sarah's hand as the cancer ate her alive, about promises that medical science would find a cure that came too late, too expensive, too far beyond their reach. She thought about a world where billionaires lived forever, while people like Sarah died young. She thought about democracy becoming meaningless when the same ultra-wealthy consciousnesses controlled elections across centuries. She thought about everything she'd ever believed about fairness and justice and the fundamental equality of human beings. "I'm certain," she said firmly. "What do you need me to do?" Kim pulled out a tablet, her fingers flying across the screen. "First, you're going to that lunch. You're going to wear a wire and record everything Vance says. We need him admitting to the conspiracy in his own words. Then, in 3 days, you'll testify before a closed congressional hearing. After that..." She looked up, her expression grave. "After that, your life will never be the same. You'll probably need witness protection. Your career in private research is over. Vance will make sure you're blacklisted from every major institution. But..." A hint of steel entered her voice. You'll also be the person who prevented the greatest crime against human equality in history. That has to count for something." Maya nodded slowly, her decision crystallizing into determination. The wire taped to Maya's chest felt like a brand burning against her skin as she rode the private elevator to Marcus Vance's penthouse office. Agent Kim's words echoed in her mind. "Just get him talking. Get him to admit what Project Elysium really is. Get him to explain why only billionaires deserve immortality." Easy for Kim to say from the safety of a surveillance van 3 blocks away. She wasn't the one about to sit across from a man who could destroy her with a single phone call, who probably already knew she was planning to betray him, who held the keys to both eternal life and eternal damnation. The elevator doors opened onto a vista that took Maya's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, making the world below look like a toy model, insignificant and small. Vance stood with his back to her, hands clasped behind him, a king surveying his kingdom. When he turned, his smile was warm, genuine, the smile of a man who held all the cards and knew it. "Maya, welcome. Please, sit." He gestured to a table set for 2, laden with food that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "I took the liberty of ordering for both of us. Seared ahi tuna, truffle risotto, and a wine that's older than most of the people working in this building. I hope you don't mind." She minded everything. She minded the casual display of wealth, the assumption that he could control every aspect of their interaction, the implicit threat underneath his hospitality. But she sat, remembering Kim's instructions. Keep him talking. Let his ego do the work. "Mr. Vance, about last night," Maya began, but he waved her words away like bothersome insects. "Please call me Marcus. And yes, let's talk about last night. You broke into my server room, bypassed security protocols that cost me $50 million to develop, and stole confidential files related to Project Elysium." He took a sip of wine, his eyes never leaving hers. "Most people would call that corporate espionage, industrial theft, crimes that could land you in prison for 20 years. But I don't see it that way. You know why?" Maya's throat was so tight she could barely whisper. "Why?" "Because you're brilliant. Because your neural mapping breakthrough was the missing piece we needed. Because you deserve to know what you helped create." He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him like heat. "You've seen the files. You know what we're building. The question is, do you understand why? Do you grasp the magnificent necessity of what Project Elysium represents?" "Necessity?" Maya's voice found strength in her outrage. "You're planning to give immortality exclusively to the ultra-wealthy. How is that necessary? How is that anything but the most obscene inequality imaginable?" Vance's smile widened. There it is. The moral objection I was waiting for. "Maya, let me tell you something about human progress. Every major advancement in history started with the few before spreading to the many. The first cars cost what a house costs. The first computers filled entire rooms. The first antibiotics were reserved for soldiers and politicians. But eventually, the technology democratized. 20 years from now, maybe 30, consciousness uploading will be as common as smartphones. But someone has to go first. Someone has to fund the research, take the risks, prove the concept. And why shouldn't it be those with the resources to make it happen?" "Because 20 years is too long," Maya shot back. "Because in those 20 years, you and your 47 billionaire friends will consolidate power in ways that can never be undone. You'll control companies forever, influence politics across centuries. You're not just buying immortality, you're buying permanent dominance over the entire human race." "Yes." Vance stood abruptly, his passion finally breaking through his calculated composure. Yes, exactly. Because humanity needs guidance, Maya. Do you know how many existential threats we're facing? Climate change, artificial intelligence, nuclear proliferation, pandemics. We need leadership that doesn't die every 70 years. We need institutional memory that lasts centuries. We need people who can think beyond the next election cycle, who can plan for humanity's future across millennia. Democracy is a beautiful idea, but it's catastrophically short-sighted. We're trying to solve 1,000-year problems with 4-year attention spans. So your solution is dictatorship, Maya challenged. Oligarchy, rule by those rich enough to buy immortality. My solution is survival. Vance's voice cracked with genuine emotion, and for the first time, Maya saw the true believer beneath the billionaire facade. I'm not doing this for power or ego. I'm doing this because I've watched brilliant minds die just as they reached their peak. I've watched humanity make the same mistakes, generation after generation, because we never learn, never remember, never maintain continuity. Uploaded consciousness isn't about privilege, Maya. It's about preserving the best of humanity while we still can. He walked to the window, and his next words were softer, almost vulnerable. I was 17 when my father died. Cancer. He was a genius, a visionary who could have changed the world. But death doesn't care about potential. It takes everyone eventually. The brilliant and the stupid, the kind and the cruel, the ones we need and the ones we could spare. That's not justice, Maya. That's random chance, and I refuse to accept it anymore. He turned back to her, and his eyes gleamed with fervent conviction. I'm offering you a gift, a chance to opt out of mortality's lottery. Your neural mapping made this possible. You deserve to be among the first. Imagine it. No more fear of death. No more watching people you love disappear. No more ticking clock forcing you to compromise your dreams. Just endless time to learn, to grow, to become everything you were meant to be. The offer hung in the air between them like a physical thing, beautiful and terrible. Maya felt its pull, the seductive whisper of forever calling to the scared, mortal part of her that had watched her sister die and knew, with absolute certainty, that someday she would die too.